Oh, come in, come in. Oh, nice to see you, nice to see you. Do come in and have a seat. Well, these quieter days of August, I've actually been able to get on a bit more with my Arthuriad, so I'm pleased by that. I've made more progress than I thought I would. The first volume, of course, is coming out in March next year, and then the second volume, I think, in November in that year, and I've completed those. More revision to do, but essentially they're done. So I'm embarking on volume 3, which is the more general adventures of the Knights of the Round Table. It's less the full development of the plot from beginning to end, and more just the wonderful episodic stories that people loved to hear in the Middle Ages, and which were embroidered in so many ways. And in fact, any really good story that was going would tend to get attached to a Knight of the Round Table, so it could become part of that. So the first book of volume 3 is all about Lancelot, and I've just finished a particular episode which I thought I'd share with you, and it's Lancelot and the Chapel Perilous. And it's a very interesting episode in Malory. This is my now falling to pieces Thomas Malory, the great 15th century compiler in late Middle English of these stories. It's interesting because it has some details that might seem... It's basically a kind of quite dark tale, quite a sort of scary tale. But there's some figures in it of these silent, dark knights holding their swords and speaking in a kind of deathly way and presenting a kind of wall of fear to Lancelot, which strikes me as a kind of anticipation of the ring-wraiths, is something like that. Obviously, Tolkien was completely familiar with this text. Not that he drew on it a lot, but he did, in fact, as we now know, write his own go at Mort data. So I'll just give you a phrase or two from this, and then I'll read you my version. So he's come in this dark wood to a place called the Chapel Perilous, and he sees all these shields hung on the western wall of the chapel, and they're clearly, you know, if the shields have been left there, something has become of the knights. With that he saw by him there stand 30 great knights, more by a yard than any man ever he had seen, so very tall. And all those grinned and gnashed at Lancelot, and when he saw their countenance, he dreaded him sore, and so put his shield afore him. And then later on, when he comes out of the chapel, having an encounter with a kind of wraith-like corpse, as he comes in, ever and unless he was in the chapel yard, all the knights spake to him with a grimly voice, and said, Knight Sir Lancelot, lay that sword from thee, else thou shalt die. So who knows, there might be a sort of stray sense. Obviously, when I write my version, I'm, you know, fully aware of the wraiths, and perhaps something of that comes into mind. Anyway, if you're sitting comfortably, I read it. It's you know, longer than some of my sections, but it makes a complete tale, and I thought you'd enjoy it. This is an adventure that he has on his way back towards Camelot, having had great adventures in Cornwall and beaten giants and ogres and things. After he turned and rode his steed back towards Camelot, and on the way, the old bards say, a strange adventure fell and fay befell Sir Lancelot. Deep in a forest rode the knight, more wild than he had seen, most dark and lonesome, shadowy, as though meshed in some mystery. Moss from the trees hung like a shroud, from streams a mist rose like a cloud, and sparse light filtered through the glade, made dim and pale and green. Then sudden, in the undergrowth, a movement made him start. A flash of white glimpsed by the night quickened his beating heart. It was a brachet drawn to scent and casting for her trail. Then Lancelot saw drops of blood. The brachet bayed as still she stood. Then swift from drop to drop of blood she set off running, belling loud. Lancelot followed as he could the brachet on her trail. Indeed, she looked behind her then and seemed to call him on. Out from the wood, through fen and bog, where fallen trees all waterlogged, his straight course and his passage clogged, whilst a low pestilential fog soon chilled him to the bone. At length they came unto a bridge, over a moat it spanned. And there he saw a moated grange, a house half ruined, old and strange, moss-covered, ivy-clad. That range seemed oozing from the land. An ancient door half open stood, and through it ran the hound. Lancelot followed as he could, and saw the Bratchet's trail of blood led to a bier where one lay dead. The Bratchet nuzzled him and howled with loud and doleful sound. By the dead knight a lady stood, wringing her hands in woe. She wept and said to Lancelot, "Alas, what sorrow you have brought! Here lies my husband. Death hath caught my poor Sir Gilbert, brought to naught by his most odious foe." Lancelot answered, all distraught, "Lady, I never harmed this knight, but only followed in plain sight this Bratchet here unto this night, and this is all I know." "I speak in grief, good sir," she said. "I know it was not you. I know and curse the knight who slew my husband here, and he will rue what he has done. My curse will fall upon him, wounded in his hall. Oh, may his dire wounds never heal, but weep their blood like dew. Begone! You may not comfort me. I hate all other men. My curse I cast. I wish you lost in some foul bog or fen." "God send you better comfort soon. I'd hoped to do you good." And saying so, he rode away, rueing the sights he'd seen that day. He heard her curses fade away and rode back to the wood. He had not ridden far before a damsel hailed him there. She knew him by his noble shield and the 3 bendlet school it held. "Well met, Sir Lancelot," she called, "the bravest knight in all the field. Pray bring me comfort here." "How may I help?" said Lancelot. "Tell me of your distress." "Alas, my brother lies not far, in grief and pain and wounded sore, with wounds that will not cease to bleed, since on those wounds a curse is laid by wicked sorceress. He lately fought an evil knight, Sir Gilbert was his name, and for that he has harassed me, and would, I know, have ravished me, my brother came to rescue me and put that knight to shame. And so in fair and open fight my brother slew our foe. But he too took a grievous wound, and woe to us, for we have found a curse was laid upon that wound to work him pain and woe. For dark Sir Gilbert's lady fell, practices magic arts, and by her curse his wound won't heal, for she has cast a hellish spell, whereby my brother falls more ill. His suffering breaks my heart. But as I cried and wept for him, behold, a lady came walking over fen and mere. A soft light seemed to mantle her. She seemed an elven maiden fair. Nimue was her name. She said, "Take hope. There is a way to close your brother's wound. Look for a knight of great prowess, of noble form and gentleness, to dare the Chapel Perilous. One such knight can be found. Then from the Chapel Perilous that knight must bring a sword, a bright sword, and a piece of cloth, ta'en from a knight who pale in death lies in that chapel like a wraith and under a strange guard." "You speak of marvels strange indeed," replied Sir Lancelot. "But tell me your good brother's name." Why, good Sir Knight, he's known to fame, Sir Meliot, of goodly frame, a knight of Camelot." "I know his name," said Lancelot. "He is my fellow knight. At the round table full of grace, Sir Meliot has his noble place, a courteous knight of comely face, a servant of the light. I would help heal him if I can, and gladly take this quest. Show me the way that I should go. I'll dare the deed, come weal or woe. Let angels guard me where I go, and fit me for this test." "Follow this path," the lady said, "and it will bring you soon unto the Chapel Perilous, a dark place and mysterious. If you do not return to us, no other knight can take this quest. It is for you alone." So down the path rode Lancelot, deep in the forest dim. He set his natural fear aside, and boldly on that path did ride, and let his living lord decide what would become of him. He came unto a clearing soon, and saw the chapel there. So he dismounted from his steed, and tethered it to wait his need, and went on foot, with mounting dread, towards the chapel door. The western wall, he soon perceived, was strangely hung with shields. Each was reversed, hung upside down, as though to mock at the renown and honour that they once had known when brave knights bore the field. And suddenly, beneath them stood full 30 knights in black. Black was their armour, black their swords, unearthly tall were these strange wards, nor did they utter any words, silent they stood and dark. But Lancelot drew his bright blade and boldly rushed on them. They scattered either side of him, with glaring eyes and silence grim. Lancelot turned his back on them and boldly entered in. The place was lit by one dim lamp, which cast strange shadows back. They flickered on each low stone arch of that dark and unhallowed church. Like shadow claws they seemed to reach for Lancelot, to seize and clutch, to fright and drive him back. But Lancelot came boldly on, and saw within the nave a great stone slab, whereon there lay an outstretched corpse, uncanny, fey, covered in cloth of silk it lay, as though some curse had kept at bay its meeting with the grave. Lancelot stooped, and from the cloth he cut a silken strip. But as he did, the stone floor shook, as though the earth began to quake. The oil lamp swung and swayed and creaked. The shadows writhed as though to take and keep him in their grip. Lancelot knelt still in fear, and then he saw a sword. A pale sword, wrought with many a rune, lay by the knight on that cold stone. Lancelot reached and took the blade, defying every frightful shade. Back to the door his way he made, his great heart beating hard. And as he crossed the threshold there, and back into the glade, he saw the 30 guardians grim. In hollow tones they spoke to him, though no lips moved. They spoke his name. Lancelot, leave the blade. Lay down that sword, or you will die, and die most horribly. Die the undeath that we have died, and as a wraith will here abide in horror until judgment tide, stricken with sorcery. But Lancelot spoke boldly then. I will not yield this sword. Whether I live or whether die, your sorcery I here defy. Safe in my Saviour's hands am I, and fast within his word. Forward he strode, and not a hand was raised against him there. Those knights withdrew on either side. Between them, down a pathway wide, Lancelot strode with that strange blade, defying fiends and fear. Safely the churchyard path he trod, and to the lich gate came, where in the murk a damsel dark was waiting there for him. Sir Lancelot, she said to him, leave that fell sword behind, or surely you will die for it, and tread the path through death's dark gate. The sword will bring you to that fate, and in the darkness bind. I leave it not, he said to her, whatever threats you make. I keep my quest and keep my word. I will bring healing with this sword. If in this world I dare die thereby, with Jesus I will wake. You speak right well, the damsel said to good Sir Lancelot, for if indeed you left the sword, the runes engraved upon its blade declare that here you would abide, nor ever stir, nor ever ride back home to Camelot. Then I would be a fool, he said, to fail in this great test. It was to fetch the sword I came. To leave it here would stain my name, and I would have been much to blame to falter in my quest. Then, gentle knight, the damsel said, do one thing ere you pass. I beg you of your courtesy, and by love's holy mystery, that ere we part, you give to me a single knightly kiss. Not so, fair dame, said Lancelot. That were a sinful kiss. Alas, she cried, my labour's lost, for had you given me that kiss, it had released my long-wrought curse, and killed you as you kissed. I made the Chapel Perilous by magic, stone on stone, all to entrap and to ensnare 3 noblest lights of Lawgrace fair, yourself and Gawain, Percival, who's yet a child, and by my spell to thwart the coming of the Grail, and curse King Arthur's throne. For I am Alois, sorceress, companion of Morgan le Fay, who may yet slay that wizard's boy who rules today. We may be thwarted for a day, but soon we will return. What made her thus confess these things there in the churchyard path? Something in Lancelot, maybe, that pierced her veil of sorcery, something of noble chivalry that drew from her the truth. As for you, Lancelot, she said, you may have foiled me here, but I can see your future too. A day will come that you will rue, a day to shame you through and through, when all you boast will prove untrue, and mockery will seize on you, madness and shame and fear. And of course that does come to pass. Jesu, preserve me from your craft, said Lancelot in haste. He crossed himself, and she was gone. The great knight stood there all alone by dreary woods and freezing stone, in country wild and waste. But in his hand he held the sword, and he untied his steed, rode swiftly back along the track to where he'd left the tearful maid, and showed her by the shining blade that he had done the deed. And now she wept with tears of joy and hailed him happily. Come swift with me into our hall, where still my brother lies so pale, for you alone can make him well and break this sorcery. Softly they came into the hall where good Sir Lancelot lay. Lancelot knelt to tend to him, his sister knelt to pray. Lancelot touched his weeping wound full gently with the sword, then bound it with a silken cloth to ward against all curse and wrath, and prayed he'd be restored to health by Jesus Christ our Lord. And lo, no sooner was this done than good Sir Lancelot stirred, opened his eyes and blessed the light, and greeted fair his fellow knight, and stood made whole with all set right, and thanked our gracious God. Great was their joy and full their praise unto Sir Lancelot. He stayed with them for many days. All his adventures in those days they heard from him with deep amaze. But then he said, Whitsun draws near, for us a hallowed time of year, and ere great Pentecost dawns clear, I'll ride to Camelot. And so he bade them both farewell, sister and brother there, and rode off through that sweet fresh spring, midst brakes and bowers where linnets sing, and the sweet nightingale takes wing, to see what ventures God might bring, and face them, foul or fair. So there you are. It's quite a long episode, but a standalone episode. I hope it gives you a taste of things to come. It's a pleasure to read it to you. Thanks for dropping by.